What's up, guys? Welcome to this edition of Funko Podcast. I'm DK Wrestler.
And I'm MD Shady.
And in today's podcast, it is another WWE edition of a Funko Podcast. Of course, this weekend, as this is being released, will be SummerSlam, which is going to be an exciting card. But today, more specifically, because we have been doing kind of the eras of WWE, we're going to be talking about a little bit of dark times. That being the PG era of WWE, lasting from pretty much 2008 to 2013, depending on what you declare as the PG era. Some people may say like 2014 or even going to 2016, not counting that small era that happened from like 2014 to 2016. It had some moments, but yeah, it seems like there was a lot of people who weren't really fans of the PG era. And I know for those first few WrestleManias of the PG era, like 25, 26, 27, we actually mentioned it on our 40 Years of WrestleMania podcast, how those weren't really the greatest WrestleManias. And then they ended up finding a little bit of ways to actually like make it a little bit better. But MD, what do you think about the PG era after especially us watching through the Ruthless Aggression era, and then all of a sudden this change ended up happening?
Yeah, the PG era definitely was not great. I definitely did watch a lot of it, though. Cena kind of running the show, sort of. And yeah, with the PG stuff, like, it was tough because stuff was all, like, so censored, and the matches weren't that great either. It just, yeah, not a great time. But there was some good stuff out of the PG era, so you can't really say that it was all bad. But overall, not great. And it's nice to see wrestling is kind of good again right now, because watching through the PG era was tough at some times.
We are going to be highlighting some of those superstars from the PG era, kind of like the same scenario we've been doing for all the other eras. Talk about a little bit of the Funko Pops involved with those certain superstars. And then, at least for me, I will be discussing about pops that I want to see next as terms to PG era. I will mention, first of all, that unfortunately, in case you were wondering, we will not be highlighting John Cena in this podcast, because in our Ruthless Aggression podcast, we already highlighted John Cena, even though he technically should be mentioned again for the PG era realistically, because he was through the whole PG era. But nonetheless, MD, are you ready to discuss about some superstars that highlighted the PG era?
Absolutely.
So the first superstar we're talking about is someone that I never expected to say current WWE superstar, but I am: CM Punk. Chicago, Illinois, 218 pounds, two-time WWE champion, three-time World Heavyweight champion, ECW champion, Intercontinental champion, World Tag Team champion with Kofi Kingston, and a two-time Money in the Bank winner in 2008 and 2009, and he is the 19th Triple Crown champion. CM Punk was definitely a highlight for the PG era, definitely like the number two guy when you think about it. He drew so many sales as terms to merchandise. He was so popular because he was almost like that generation Stone Cold, being anti-authority, and he created a lot of great moments and really reinvented himself as terms to the PG era, with both like the straight edge gimmick with the Straight Edge Society, and of course what we seen the early 2010s, I should say. I don't technically think he would be the best in the world as terms to in-ring ability, but man, that guy can cut a promo like no tomorrow. What do you got to say about CM Punk and how crazy it is that he is in the WWE now again?
Yeah, that definitely is something crazy to say, considering we thought he would never be back in wrestling in general. But yeah, coming back to WWE, I can't believe that even happened. That was such a shocker. Definitely had my ups and downs with being a fan of his, but overall, yeah, he's wicked. His in-ring ability is not the greatest, I suppose. It used to be pretty good, and now it's kind of a little bit lackluster. But yeah, his mic skills are amazing when it comes to like the pipe bomb, of course, which happened during the PG era, and then even like the stuff that he did with MJF and AEW. Like, he is just unreal on the mic. So I think that kind of saves his career a bit in that sense, because especially with the way his career is going now, like, I think he's kind of shaky in the ring, in my opinion. But CM Punk is awesome. I liked some of the different gimmicks that he sort of had throughout his career, especially in the PG era. The Straight Edge Society was definitely a different kind of gimmick and angle that they went with, which was cool.
Any matches in mind when you think of CM Punk? I got a list, but do you have any matches in mind that you think of when you think of CM Punk?
Definitely. I'm so bad with dates, but the match that he had with Cena, which one is that? I think a lot of people say it's like one of the best like Cena matches of all time.
It depends on which one you're talking about. They've had multiple. Maybe you're talking Money in the Bank when he walked out of Chicago.
Yes. Okay. Yes. I believe that is the one that I'm thinking of. Of course, there was when he lost his hair, of course, that match, which was against Mysterio, right? Yeah, that was a pretty decent match. And it was funny to watch CM Punk, of course, lose his hair and then go on to wear like the mask for the next little bit. Yeah, I guess that's all I really have for Punk.
So there wasn't really much of like the earlier stuff that I wrote down, especially like when he first came in. But the earliest that I did put down is the TLC match he had with Jeff Hardy at SummerSlam 2009. And that is mainly because of the moment that happened after that, where CM Punk is standing over Jeff Hardy holding the world title. The Undertaker's gong goes off, and then Undertaker is actually below CM Punk where Jeff Hardy is. And then a match we actually talked about in our 40 Years of WrestleMania podcast because we thought it was a highlight of WrestleMania 27, that being his match with Randy Orton. Of course, the John Cena match at Money in the Bank where he walks out of Chicago with the title, or another match I just realized now that people really like of that is during the build to, I believe it was Cena versus Rock 2. They had a match on Monday Night Raw during that, and people love that. A lot of people do enjoy the CM Punk versus Daniel Bryan match from Over the Limit 2012 for the WWE title. I had put down CM Punk versus The Rock at Royal Rumble 2013, the moment The Rock took the title. Of course, they did have the match at Elimination Chamber, but I think the Royal Rumble match was a bit better. Highly underrated match with The Undertaker at WrestleMania 29, which was literally the match of the night, in my opinion, for that WrestleMania. And then put him versus Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. CM Punk does have a couple of Funko Pops right at the beginning of the WWE wave. Number 2 in the set, there's a regular version with basically the same attire that he wore at Money in the Bank. And then also the Hot Topic exclusive where he's wearing the pink attire that kind of paid homage to the Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yeah, those pops are pretty sweet. Those two super OG pops. And I remember DK wanting that Macho Man one, I think it was, that you wanted a lot, right? Yeah, fair. I definitely liked the Macho Man homage trunks. I think that was a great look, probably my favorite look of CM Punk. So that pop's pretty sweet. But at this point now, they do look kind of dated. They are kind of those arms to the side kind of posing. But at the same time, they're still such cool classic Funko Pops.
The next superstar we're talking about that definitely defined the PG era, that is, of course, Daniel Bryan. Aberdeen, Washington, 210 pounds, 4-time WWE champion, World Heavyweight champion, Intercontinental champion, United States champion, tag team champions with Kane, the SmackDown tag team champions with Rowan, the 2011 Money in the Bank winner, the blue briefcase for the World Heavyweight title, the 26th Triple Crown champion, and then it's listed on Wikipedia, the 6th Grand Slam champion, but then under the current format, it's the 15th overall. Yeah, Daniel Bryan, what a great worker in the ring, and he got so over during literally 2014 with the Yes movement.
Oh, man, Daniel Bryan. It's hard to deny that he was super over and is a great technician in the ring. Personally, I don't really love him, honestly. There was sometimes, like with Team Hell No with Kane, like that was really funny. I liked that. But I think he was just getting pushed to the moon, and there was definitely some stuff that I didn't like, but you can't deny he's a great worker and he's unbelievable in the ring. Some matches, the first one that comes to mind, of course, is him versus essentially Evolution, where he defeats Triple H, Randy Orton, and Batista all in one night. That unified the titles, right? That match?
So that match, the titles are already unified, but Daniel Bryan had to beat Triple H in order to insert himself in the match.
Oh, okay, got you. Yeah. Huge moment for Daniel Bryan, of course. The whole Yes movement with the crowd just going crazy, chanting Yes. Pretty insane stuff.
All right, so matches I have, not sure why I wrote the CM Punk match again, since I already mentioned it, but it is what it is. I also put the match with John Cena at SummerSlam 2013, because of course that's when he first won the WWE title, before he gets pedigreed by Triple H, and Randy Orton cashes in Money in the Bank, literally starting that whole storyline for Daniel Bryan. Both matches for him against Bray Wyatt at the Royal Rumble, because he had one in 2014, where it was basically like cult leader Bray, and then in 2020 as the Fiend Bray Wyatt during the strap match for the Universal Championship. And then, of course, I did write down the triple threat match at WrestleMania 30. But yes, Triple H, he had to wrestle first in order to insert himself in the match because it was one-on-one because Batista won the Rumble that year. Then I wrote down for more of the last part of his run where initially he retired and then he came back, his match with Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series 2018. And then I had put down the triple threat match he ended up having at WrestleMania 37 with Roman Reigns and Edge. And then as terms to Funko Pops, Daniel Bryan Bryan actually has 3 Funko Pops in the lineup. There is the original one. I'm actually not looking at photos. I'm looking at my notes. There's like a red trunk attire, a black trunk attire, and then there's like a pattern trunk attire, which there's like a Hot Topic exclusive, and then WWE shop exclusive one also. So there's 3 different ones. They all kind of look the same, but you can kind of tell the difference with the way the trunks look.
Yeah, if I'm remembering correctly with the Daniel Bryan pop, he looks like a troll. I remember thinking that Funko Pop looked so silly because his beard was just so big for the pop. Like I said with the CM Punk one, like this one is also pretty old. And I honestly think that if Funko were to do a current look for Daniel Bryan, obviously don't think that's going to happen. I think that they could do a lot better than what we've seen with that OG one.
Next superstar we're talking about is actually one of MD's favorites, especially when his favorite retired. That is Sheamus. Dublin, Ireland, 250 pounds, 3-time WWE champion, world heavyweight champion, 3-time United States champion, 4-time Raw tag team champions with Cesaro as the bar, SmackDown tag team champions with Cesaro, the 2010 King of the Ring winner, the 2015 Money in the Bank winner, and the 2012 Royal Rumble winner.
Yeah, Sheamus definitely was one of my favorites. It sucked, of course, when Edge had to retire. So I kind of found Sheamus. I liked him a lot. So I definitely followed his career and definitely enjoyed a lot of his stuff. One match that I completely forgot about until you mentioned Sheamus is, and I could have this totally screwed up, but it was a battle royal. And I was like, oh, Sheamus has to win this. And then I believe the last 2 was him and Hornswoggle. I was like, there's no way right now that Sheamus is going to lose to Hornswoggle, especially in the PG era. They would do something stupid like that. And then they both end up on like the outside of the ring apron, and you basically think that Hornswoggle is going to beat Sheamus, and then Sheamus just bro kicks him right off the ring, and it was the funniest. So that's definitely one match that I remember a lot. Of course, there was his Royal Rumble win. I'm trying to think of another match. Him and was it Cena that he won the WWE Championship off of?
Yeah, the table spot where he just fell over.
Yeah, of course. There's that, which was a weird match. Newer matches now, of course, him and Edge, where DK actually watched that match live in Toronto. What a match that was. So yeah, I guess I'll just leave it at that.
All right, so the first match that I did have on my list was the TLC 2009 match where literally Sheamus just pushed John Cena off the top, fell through the table that way to win the WWE title. I also put him versus Mark Henry at SummerSlam 2011 when he had just turned babyface, the 2012 Royal Rumble, and then I didn't want to add him versus Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania 28 because we know how long that match ended up being. I also put for the bar is the match at Roadblock End of Line 2016 where they won the tag titles from the New Day. What may be my favorite Sheamus match of all time that happened recently is him versus Gunther for the Intercontinental title at Clash of the Castle 2022. And then also have to mention the triple threat match involving Gunther and Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania 39. That was just as good as that match. And then I actually did mention, because I didn't think you were actually going to mention it, is him versus Edge. Edge's last match in WWE at SmackDown in Toronto. And Sheamus has one Funko Pop in the lineup in that very first wave that I keep mentioning about, and it's still surprising that they still never made a Sheamus Pop since. You would think that they would have at least made like a Sheamus with Mohawk Pop.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I'm surprised that we haven't seen a Mohawk Sheamus. And with the first Sheamus, it's okay. I definitely think we need a new one because this pop is just okay. It's not terrible. It's old and it doesn't look great. So Funko definitely needs to work on that for maybe their next wave of WWE pops.
The next superstar we're talking about is The Miz. Depending on which gimmick you like better, I guess, he's either from Cleveland, Ohio, or he's from Hollywood, California. 221 pounds, 2-time WWE champion, 8-time Intercontinental champion, 2-time United States champion, 5-time World Tag Team champions with John Morrison, Big Show, John Cena, Damian Mizdown, and R-Truth as a part of Raw Tag Team champions recently before becoming the World Tag Team champions. 2-time SmackDown Tag Team champions, once with Shane McMahon and once with John Morrison. The winner of the 2010 Money in the Bank ladder match, for more specifically the red Money in the Bank briefcase for the WWE title. He is the 25th Triple Crown champion and the 14th Grand Slam champion. There's a lot I could say about The Miz. A lot of people did hate him at first, but I think finally, after so many years, he's just getting his flowers now because Miz is just so goddamn good. It's hard to really explain how good The Miz is and how good he has become over the last last few years at least. And he is definitely at this point a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I love The Miz. Definitely one of like my favorites of all time, honestly. So good on the mic. His in-ring work is pretty damn good as well. He can sell moves pretty well. Not to make a pun, he's just awesome. So matches for The Miz, of course, him and Cena and their feud that they had, which kind of involved Alex Riley as well, which is a name that I haven't thought of in so long at this point now. There's also a moment that I can think of, which isn't really PG era. I guess this technically did happen quite a while ago now at this point, depending on when you think the PG era ended or not, is on Talking Smack. Is that what it was called? That show where he basically shot a promo on Daniel Bryan, and it was so heated and it was unreal. Like one of my favorite kind of promos I've ever seen. I just thought it was so good. Other matches for The Miz, I'm trying to think of ones that aren't current, because obviously I've seen a bunch of current stuff, but I'm trying to think of like some of those earlier matches for The Miz. The Dirt Sheet was awesome. I loved John Morrison so much growing up, so when him and The Miz kind of went together and made this tag team, that was really, really cool. I like that.
All right, so the matches I wrote down, I did get some earlier stuff. I mentioned this one because I didn't want to mention it twice, of course. He had a match with Daniel Bryan at Night of Champions 2010, where Miz was holding the Money in the Bank briefcase and being the U.S. champion at the same time. And this is where I believe Daniel Bryan did win the U.S. title. There's, of course, the earlier rendition of the Awesome Truth, where they had a tag team match against John Cena and The Rock at Survivor Series 2011. The match with Christian and The Miz at Raw 1000, when The Miz first became the Intercontinental Champion. And speaking of Talking Smack, this kind of goes along with this because it's that amazing storied rivalry against Dolph Ziggler with the match at No Mercy 2016, where it was title versus career. Dolph Ziggler's career was on the line, and Ziggler even cut an amazing promo during that feud, which led to Ziggler winning the championship and saving his career. I also put for more recent memory, him and Maurice versus Edge and Beth Phoenix at Royal Rumble 2022. I could have put down the mixed tag match from WrestleMania 33 with John Cena and Nikki Bella, but I found this one was a little bit better in my opinion. And then more recent one, probably his best babyface Miz match, is him versus Gunther at Survivor Series 2023. You're going to be hearing a lot of Gunther matches because Gunther just gets the best out of anyone in the ring for Intercontinental title. As terms to Funko Pops, The Miz has one Funko Pop, and goddamn, it took so long for Funko to do a pop. The fact that they didn't do it as maybe even one of the first pops is actually a little bit surprising, but I guess it was better to wait on that because this pop has a lot of awesome detail with like his entrance attire at the time, and especially like the I'm Awesome glasses I believe he was wearing. Once again, like I mentioned, I'm not even looking at photos. This is just what I'm trying to think of off the top of my mind, but I remember that Miz pop being so awesome.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that Miz pop. It kind of came out at the wrong time, though, for me to not own it because I kind of stopped collecting the WWE Funko Pops besides the certain ones that I wanted to keep in my collection. So I never owned that pop, but yeah, his entrance gear looks awesome in that pop, and it was the white attire code, I believe. So yeah, definitely pretty cool. I like the pop, but it would have been cool to see an OG one for the Miz as well. But at the same time, his attire back then was so plain that I think it would be such a plain Funko Pop for their original moldings that it would be just like, here's generic male. That's kind of what it would look like.
Next superstar, he kind of defined the PG era, but I mainly put the superstar because when you think of collectibles and Funko, it makes sense. And that is the Long Island IC, Zack Ryder. Woo, woo, woo. You know it. Long Island, New York, 224 pounds, Intercontinental Champion, United States Champion, WWE Tag Team Champions with Curt Hawkins, and then later on, the Raw Tag Team Champions with Curt Hawkins. And what an underrated son of a gun, because he had the entire package that I felt like Vince McMahon was looking for, and he just was never really utilized properly. Like, yeah, he did have his moment a little bit when he launched the Z True Long Island Story YouTube series. That guy should have been the world champion at least once, even if it was just like the big Goldie and not the actual WWE title. Oh man, so underrated. And now you see the stuff that he's doing on the indies as Matt Cardona and everything he's done in like Impact and GCW and all this stuff. Like, good for him that he's doing some good stuff now, because that's the stuff that I wish would have happened in the WWE. Underrated is the perfect word, and hopefully one day he does come back.
Yeah, he definitely is. Definitely a lot of memories of Zack Ryder with the YouTube channel, his current YouTube channel, and of course his time in the WWE and then also on the indies. One match that always comes to mind is when he won the Intercont Championship at WrestleMania 32. What a shocker. And then he dropped the title, was it the next day on Raw? To the Miz. Yeah, just bogus the way that WWE treated Zack Ryder. Like, especially that one time where he was like best friends with John Cena, right? And then he ends up like seeing, what was it, Eva Marie?
No, it's Eve Torres.
Eve Torres, yeah. She's like making out with John Cena and supposed to be with him. He has like the neck brace and he's in the wheelchair and he ends up getting tossed off the stage. And just the way that they treated him for what he was, like super over with the crowd too. Probably mostly because of how successful his YouTube channel was. But yeah, they did not utilize him very well. So it is really great to see where he is going with his career in the indies. And of course, him and Kurt Hawkins with their YouTube show that they do for like toy collecting. I can't get enough of that channel. I love it.
Yeah, there wasn't really many that I put down because they didn't really utilize him properly to think of like those top matches. Besides, of course, the first one I got to think of is the moment he won the United States Championship from Dolph Ziggler at TLC 2011. The crowd popped huge because I know they were building it up where he got screwed over week after week for that US title. Team Teddy versus Team Johnny at WrestleMania 28. Zack Ryder was a part of that match. And then, of course, with Eve Torres kicking Zack Ryder in the bronads after the match. And yeah, crowd didn't like Eve after that, that's for sure. And then the match with Kurt Hawkins against the Revival at WrestleMania 35. They were building up the fact that Kurt Hawkins was losing like 240 something matches in a row. And finally, he got that win because of that tag team title win. So that's really all I could think of. Speaking of Funko Pops, so there are two Funko Pops for Zack Ryder, one being a New York Comic Con exclusive from, I believe, 2017, I want to say, which I do own that pop. And then they did a Funko HQ with the green attire, and I believe it's limited to 500 pieces. So it is one of the rarest WWE pops. Overall is this one Zack Ryder pop. And I remember for the while being like, why hasn't Zack Ryder had a pop? Because he even has like Funko Pops of like Ghostbusters and other movies in his display whenever he's doing like the major wrestling figure podcast or whatever. So yeah, it took a little bit for Funko to do it, but I'm glad they did it for the sake of knowing that Zack Ryder himself is a fan of Funko Pops.
Yeah, the Zack Ryder pops are pretty dang sweet. I'm surprised that I never had one in my collection, but DK did, and yeah, that was a sweet pop. I would have liked to see like an attire of Zack Ryder where he had like just like the one pant leg kind of trunks that he wore. I think that would be cool to see kind of that look for him on a Funko Pop, but the ones that we did get are also pretty sweet.
So the next superstar or superstars that we're going to talk about is the New Day. Now, technically, the New Day didn't actually form in the PG era. They formed like just after it, but we're kind of talking about the three individual superstars within the New Day that actually debuted in the PG era for the most part. Kofi Kingston, Xavier Woods, and Big E. I will mention the accomplishments for basically Kofi Kingston first before then all the accomplishments made while a part of the New Day. So Kofi Kingston already before joining the New Day, 4-time Intercontinental Champion, 3-time United States Champion, World Tag Team Champion with CM Punk, and then 2-time Tag Team Champions with Evan Bourne once, and then R-Truth once prior to the New Day. And then as a part of the New Day, or I should say the entire New Day accomplishments, 2-time WWE Champion with one from Kofi Kingston with Kofi Mania, and then Big E when he cashed in the Money in the Bank in 2021. 2-time Tag Team Champions with all three of them because of the Freebird rule. 2-time Raw Tag Team Champions with just Kofi and Xavier, 7-time SmackDown Tag Team Champions, 6 of them being all three of them because of the Freebird rule, and then once with just Kofi and Xavier Woods, NXT Tag Team Champions because of Kofi and Xavier, 2021 King of the Ring because of Xavier Woods, 2021 Money in the Bank for Big E, and then the 20th Grand Slam Champion for Kofi, the 30th Triple Crown Champion for Kofi, and then the 33rd Triple Crown Champion for Big E. All these superstars were great in their own way, but forming the New Day definitely saved their careers because it seemed like at around that time before forming the New Day, they were literally ready to be a part of either that spring or fall cleanup of released superstars.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with that. And thank God that they did make the New Day. I mean, the New Day will go down as one of the greatest tag teams of all time. And that's not even just my opinion. I think that that is like factual. They are just so good. They're so entertaining. There were so many different things like the Bootios. So moving on to matches with the New Day, one that comes to mind first is, I think it was Big E and Kofi, I want to say, against the Usos in like was it Hell in a Cell?
It was probably that, yeah.
Yeah. That was an insane tag team match. That was so good. And then stuff for like singles career. I don't really remember watching much of Xavier Woods before he like came into the New Day, but Kofi Kingston, of course, like debuting with having a Jamaican accent accent, and then of course losing the Jamaican accent. And then Big E, of course, coming in as kind of like a bodyguard kind of guy who never really spoke at all. Once finally the New Day is formed, and he's so eccentric and funny and just a bubbly like ball of joy, this guy.
So as terms to matches, yeah. So one I did write down specifically was New Day versus Usos at Hell in a Cell 2017. One that I just wrote down just for the sake is Royal Rumble in general, because of the amount of times Kofi Kingston constantly saved himself. Then specifically speaking for each of them, I did put one match for each of these competitors. So for Kofi Kingston, I couldn't really remember any of the like earlier stuffs, but you got to mention about Kofi Mania against Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania 35, winning that WWE Championship. For Big E, I put his match with Roman Reigns at Survivor Series 2021, where it was champion versus champion. And then for Xavier Woods, once again, is a match with Gunther. All three of these competitors, of course, have Funko Pops. We got the 3 New Day Pops that are individual in the white attires for Big E, Xavier Woods, and Kofi Kingston. And then I believe now, as I think about it, Xavier Woods had like up, up, down, down variants of himself. And then there was multiple New Day 3-packs where one of them is holding the trombone, I believe. And then there's ones holding the Booty-O cereal, I believe, exclusive to FYE or something like that. Pretty decent. I'm surprised they still haven't made like more like New Day specific pops realistically in multi packs.
Yeah, the Funko Pops for the New Day are pretty sweet, and it's a perfect way to get a 3-pack because it makes sense. But then they also did have singular pops, and I did own the Xavier Woods one. I don't think I do anymore. Yeah, the New Day Pops are pretty sweet, and I'm surprised that we haven't seen any new ones. Maybe we will in the near future, because it just makes sense. They've had so many weird, cool, like, attires, like the Dragon Ball Z attires that they wore, and just stuff like that, that I wouldn't be surprised if we do see a couple more versions of the New Day in Funko Pop form.
Next superstar, or once again, superstars we're talking about, is another tag team, and that is, of course, the Usos. San Francisco, California, combined weight of 493 pounds, 2-time tag team champions, 5-time SmackDown tag team champions, Raw tag team champions, the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal specifically for Jey Uso, and then, of course, the undisputed tag team champions when Jey Uso actually held it with Cody Rhodes recently within the last year. Usos, God, I remember when they first came into WWE during the PG era and they had like the face paint gimmick and doing that whole dance. Then after a while, that kind of got boring, and I think they even realized it, and then they reinvented themselves when the draft happened in 2016 and did like Uso Penitentiary and stuff like that, and doing the rap battle with the New Day. That was hilarious. Like, they even really reinvented themselves even recently when it comes to the Bloodline storyline. And then Jay managing to keep himself relevant when Jimmy got injured during the pandemic, and then he eventually became main event Jey Uso and really established himself as a singular superstar. So that was pretty sweet. When you're thinking of the greatest tag team of the modern era, I may have to say Usos, not gonna lie.
Yeah, the Usos are amazing. They're so good at wrestling. Their stuff, especially like nowadays, like DK had said, like 2016 and onwards, especially in the last couple of years, though, with their stuff on the mic and their like feud against each other, just so good. It's really surprising because I remember just not really liking the Usos back when they kind of debuted, and they were kind of a stale tag team. So it's really good for them for what they've kind of done to change up their career.
And then I guess as terms to matches, for some reason, I actually didn't write my notes down for the matches, but luckily I do have some in mind. We did mention about the Hell in a Cell one already, but with Usos, like, you can even talk about like the match with RK Bro to unify the Raw and SmackDown tag team championships. You can even mention about the WrestleMania 39 match with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, which arguably not only was probably the best match of night one, but probably was the best match of both nights of that year's WrestleMania. Probably also the Bloodline Civil War match with Usos against Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa at Money in the Bank, I believe it was, for 2023. Like, that match was awesome storyline wise. And then, of course, for Jey Uso, specifically that match that he had with Roman at Clash of the Champions in 2020 during the pandemic, and really showing himself how well of a superstar he is on his own. But yeah, that's all I could think of off the top of my head. But as terms to Funko Pops, finally, after so long, they made Usos Funko Pops after requesting it for so long. They did a regular one where it's the black attires and it says, I believe, tribal chief or some, I don't know, something related to the bloodline. And then they did a Fanatics exclusive white attire that is based off of their WrestleMania 39 match. So hopefully very soon. And I can say that at some point in 2025, I feel like we are going to get a Jey Uso main event, Jey Uso Yeet shirt with Yeet glasses pop at some point. And I think that thing will sell pretty well, as I would assume the Usos 2-packs have sold pretty well, because even at like our local stores, I haven't even seen them in stock.
Yeah, I did see the 2-pack once at our local GameStop, and I was looking at it and I debated on buying it because it is sick. I really enjoy that 2-pack. But yeah, a Jey Uso with the Yeet shirt and the Yeet glasses would be hilarious. I think Funko probably will do that, but I would also like to see more versions of the Usos. Like, I would like to see like a debut attire in Funko Pop form. I think that'd be really cool.
Next up is a section that I like to call the Divas of WWE. And it's more specifically ones we chose for the fact that they do have Funko Pops, but I'm going to mention about them. First up, we have AJ Lee, Union City, New Jersey, 3-time Divas champion. The Bella Twins, Nikki and Brie, Scottsdale, Arizona, 3-time Divas champion between both of them, because I believe Brie had the title once and Nikki had the title twice. And then Beth Phoenix, 3-time women's champion. She had the Divas championship once, and then in the Hall of Fame class of 2017. Not gonna lie, there's not really much matches I could think of between all three of them. I know that, like, I mentioned about the mixed tag match earlier with Beth Phoenix, but the Divas, I will admit, it wasn't really the greatest during this time, because yeah, there was a little bit of wrestling, but we still were in that era where women weren't really getting a chance to actually showcase their skills like we do see today, and probably will highlight in our next WWE podcast come November. But yeah, I guess this would be kind of the highlight, like AJ Lee, Beth Phoenix, maybe a little bit of the Bella Twins, not really, but Bella Twins definitely stand out with the word diva, realistically.
Yeah, I mean, even just like the Divas title, like, what an ugly championship. Yeah, it wasn't great. Women's wrestling was not great, but there was some like memorable stuff. And I guess I'll start with AJ Lee. Like, oh man, I had such a crush on AJ Lee. I think it's hard not to. She's just like this kind of like skater chick, definitely a cute girl. And I believe she's married to Phil Brooks. Yeah, so that's that. And then, of course, Beth Phoenix, who is married to my favorite wrestler of all time, Adam Copeland / Edge. She was pretty sick. I really enjoyed Beth Phoenix, but the Bella Twins were awesome as well. I think that their whole like twin magic thing that they could do, you can't really get away with doing that with like the Usos, because the Usos always had a different style. Jay and Jimmy didn't really look exactly alike, even though they are identical twins. Whereas with the Bella Twins, they are pretty dang close to looking identical. And I think that was such a good gimmick they had with the twin magic. And my grandma also loved the Bella Twins so much. So for other divas, like, I don't know, none of them really stand out too much, because like DK said, like, this is before, of course, like we had like the women's what is it called,
the women's title,
well, no, not the women's title, but the revolution, the women's revolution.
Yeah, I guess women's revolution, give Divas a chance.
Yeah, this is like before that had happened. And yeah, the Divas matches were not great, and it had been like that for basically over a decade in the WWE. So it's not really due to the PG era, because even in the Ruthless Aggression era, there was some Divas matches where it was like, what the heck's going on? Like a pillow fight, for example. Yeah, definitely not super memorable for a lot of matches, at least.
And then as terms to Funko Pops, we'll mention them now. So AJ Lee being in like the second or third wave of WWE Pops, and a very spicy meatball as terms to pricing of that pop now. Bella Twins, who have had separate pops as terms to when they did the Total Divas lineup of pops. Plus they've had a bunch of multi-packs that were exclusive to the WWE shop. I think one was like white attire, the other was red. And then Beth Phoenix, which was like the most recent pop made, where they did a really unique way of making this, where the common version is her from basically that late Ruthless Aggression, early PG era with her attire, and then doing like the more current version as it's Chase, which I thought was a really unique idea. And they've been doing a lot of awesome common and Chase pops for the WWE lineup. That's definitely a solid pop.
Yeah, that Beth Phoenix and the Chase are so cool. I really enjoy how they did that. The OG AJ Lee, yeah, I can imagine what the price on that pop is now. That was a pretty solid pop. Of course, it is one of those older ones, but I feel like there was enough detail in her attire that they made that pop look decent for being how old it is now at this point. And then the Bella Twins. Okay, I guess it's not anything amazing, but it was okay.
And now, before we get on to our last couple of segments, we do have one more superstar to talk about. That's Bray Wyatt, 285 pounds, WWE champion, two-time Universal champion, Raw Tag Team champions with Matt Hardy, SmackDown Tag Team champions with Luke Harper and Randy Orton doing the Freebird rule for the Wyatt family. Creative genius. That is what I got to say about Bray Wyatt. He was so ahead of his time in a way, but he was way too creative for Vince McMahon booking. And that's why Bray Wyatt didn't really succeed as much as he probably would have if we got to see him even today, with the sake of Triple H booking in WWE. And just, oh man, like some of the stuff that he did, even whether it is the Fiend stuff or the cult leader stuff, like his promos are like, sometimes you can't understand, but it's so intriguing, so you just listen to it. Just like Bray Wyatt is so amazing, and oh man, I could only imagine what would happen in WWE if he were to have been around still today.
Yeah, Bray Wyatt was a legend. So awesome. And like DK said, yeah, so creative. And especially at the time with like the Fiend stuff where he was doing the Firefly Funhouse, like that was must watch TV. Like I was always like, okay, I gotta watch the next episode of Raw or SmackDown or whatever, or at least get the highlights like the second that it came out, because you had to see what was going on. It was so intriguing, so different. No one had really done anything like that before. But yeah, with the Wyatt family, that was really, really awesome. I loved Bray Wyatt right off the hop. He was such an interesting character, and then he was able to evolve his character many, many times and it never really be bad, which is really outstanding. Like not a lot of people can do that. And yeah, his passing, of course, is so unfortunate because yeah, like he was a great guy and could have been doing some amazing things right now, but at least his brother is kind of carrying that torch for him right now and doing a pretty good job of it, I must say.
And then as terms to, I guess, matches that I have listed down here. So as terms to earlier on with Bray Wyatt, you got to mention about the Wyatt family versus Shield at Elimination Chamber 2014. Bray Wyatt versus Undertaker at WrestleMania 31. Bray Wyatt trying to prove that he is the new face of fear. The Elimination Chamber match in 2017 where he won the WWE Championship for the first time. And then you also got to mention during Fiend era, which there wasn't really many to think of, because obviously I'm not going to mention about like Goldberg, because we all know what happened to that match, but the very first Fiend match at SummerSlam 2019 in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, which I unfortunately missed seeing live, against Finn Balor, was a squash match, obviously, but just cool to see that even live on pay-per-view, I guess, at the time, or the WWE Network, I should say. And then, of course, the Firefly Funhouse. That's basically all I got. Yeah, in terms of Funko Pops, though, Bray Wyatt has 3 Funko Pops currently. There's the first one, number 28 in the set, the original Bray Wyatt, the cult leader Bray Wyatt pop. And then we had the Amazon exclusive Fiend Bray Wyatt, number 77 in the set, a pop that both MD and I do have. So detailed, so awesome. And then for some reason, they wanted to make a Christmas version of the Fiend. It's number 100 in the WWE set, Walmart exclusive. And I thought I'd bring this up because technically it was supposed to come out, but no words of it yet, is that they did show off during like a New York Toy Fair. There was supposed to be a Bray Wyatt pop from the Mountain Dew Pitch Black match against LA Knight, and they actually showed it off with the newer set with like Braun Strowman and Kurt Angle and all that, but it still is yet to release. So I don't know what the heck is going on with that pop.
Yeah, the pops for Bray Wyatt are pretty sick. Of course, there's that OG one. I think that that's a decent pop. I do have that in my collection, but I am selling that pop. But the Fiend pop, definitely keeping that pop. I'm keeping maybe like 4 or 5 WWE pops, and the Fiend one is one I'm keeping because it's so sick. And then they made that Christmas one, and it was so random, but so cool as well. I really enjoyed that one. It was like kind of funny and like joyous and scary and so Christmassy, but funny at the same time. So I thought that was an interesting pop. I don't think the Fiend ever wore attire like that ever. So it was just really interesting to see and a cool pop, honestly.
And now, before I mention about pops I want to see next for WWE, as specifically as terms to PG era, we're going to mention some honorable mentions of some wrestlers. So as terms to pops that we didn't get to fit in on this podcast, first off being Paige, of course, end of the PG era, but I don't think we're going to be able to talk about her even during the next podcast we do. Eva Marie, even though I don't really want to give her a shout out, she does have a pop in the set and was basically around that time. And then Naomi also, because she made her debut in the PG era as a part of the Funkadactyls, eventually doing the whole glow thing. She's got the regular pop with the glow chase, which is awesome. But once again, because we're going to be covering so many women's wrestlers in the next podcast that I don't think we're going to be able to talk about Naomi, so we'll mention her now. But then superstars that don't have Funko Pops that I thought I'd mention because of the PG era. Dolph Ziggler, such a great athlete. He actually just recently won the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, which kudos to him. Alberto Del Rio, one of the best heels of the PG era realistically, Money in the Bank winner at one point. And then I thought I'd could bring up about the Nexus, because that's got to be one of the best factions before, ultimately losing at SummerSlam, which cheap plug to my other YouTube channel, Pro Wrestling What If. You can check out What If the Nexus won at SummerSlam 2010 as terms to a video that I did on that channel. But nonetheless, I mean, Nexus, like that's kind of a highlight as terms to what you think of during that PG era. But yeah, booking decisions that just led them to just plummet down. But any superstars you could think of off the top of your head?
Yeah, I was going to say the Nexus because I'm surprised that we didn't talk about like even just Wade Barrett. But yeah, I would love to see whatever it would be, like a 7-pack or whatever for the Nexus in pop form. I think that could be very, very interesting. Or at least a Wade Barrett with the Nexus shirt. I think that would be really sick as well. Besides that, yeah, I don't know. There's not a lot of people. I thought for some reason you forgot about the Nexus. So I was going to mention that, but that was basically the big one I had in mind for like the whole video.
Alrighty, so now I'm going to be mentioning Funko Pops that I want to see next in the WWE lineup that are pertaining to the PG era. And once I mention them, I'll let MD talk about like his reaction of like, oh, is that a good pop? Or no, that's absolute which I highly doubt he's going to say that for a lot of these. But the first one I have listed here, a pop moments of CM Punk at Money in the Bank 2011 when he was blowing the kiss to Vince McMahon and is holding the WWE title. You can have him sitting on the barricade and he's holding the WWE title, blowing that kiss. I think that'd be a pretty good moment, and it is bound that we're going to get a CM Punk pop, a new one, now that he's back in the company.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a great idea. I have the picture right in my head as soon as you said what it was. So yeah, that would be a sick deluxe pop or like moments pop, and I think honestly I would potentially buy that to display, probably even out of box.
Then the next one I listed, a Usos with face paint multi-pack. We can kind of pay homage to those earlier days back when you kind of couldn't tell which one was Jay and which one was Jimmy. Yeah, I think at some point I think it would make sense, especially because it seems like the way that things are going, we may see the Usos back together again, so maybe they will make another Usos multi-pack.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a good idea. I had mentioned it earlier in the video when we were talking about the Usos that a 2-pack of them with the face paint would be sick, especially because there was like a few different colors that they could pick. But I generally think of like the blue and yellow attire when I think of that face paint, or even like the green and pink one that they did too. That could also be pretty sweet.
Next one is kind of a pop deluxe, but you may be able to pull it off in just a singular 4-inch, and that is cult leader Bray Wyatt sitting on the rocking chair, holding the lantern, and even adding a touch of glow in the dark on the lantern would be absolutely awesome. I feel we're bound to get more Bray Wyatt pops like that pop I mentioned about that hasn't released yet related to the Mountain Dew Pitch Black match, but I feel like this would be a great one to, like, if you didn't get the OG one, but you wanted like a cult leader Bray Wyatt pop and they made this would be the perfect one to get, not gonna lie.
Yeah, that definitely does sound like an awesome idea, in my opinion. I think that there's been a long time generally since that first Bray Wyatt had been out, and we've seen how much detail that they put in the Fiend. So seeing another Bray Wyatt with the detail that Funko puts in now, I think would be just so sick in general. But the whole glow in the dark aspect on that is really sick as well.
Next person I have isn't a superstar, but rather a general manager. Holla holla, Teddy Long. I think that'd be pretty sweet, even though, yes, he was a part of the Ruthless Aggression era, but he was there for quite a bit of the PG era also, and I believe we never talked about him during the Ruthless Aggression pod. I think that'd be really awesome to have Teddy Long with the white outfit, and even in his posing, he probably could do the little holla holla dance there that he normally does. I think that'd be absolutely hilarious for a Teddy Long pop, and I mean, we have seen non-wrestling role Funko Pops be made, like especially managers. I feel like at some point we're gonna have to get a Teddy Long pop.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. Teddy Long is so well liked and respected that I think at some point he definitely should get a Funko Pop.
And then the last pop was a very interesting pop that I thought of, and it did happen during the PG era, even though we are going to highly talk about the superstar during the next podcast that we do, is relating to the current undisputed WWE champion, Cody Rhodes, and that is doing a pop of dashing Cody Rhodes back when he did the whole glamour and beauty thing, but it has a chase figure and it's undashing Cody Rhodes, where he has the mask on and he thinks he's all grotesque, and they can even change the head mold a little bit to where he's wearing the hood. I think they could do a great job with this, and maybe even having a popified version of that very awesome looking white strap Intercontinental Championship.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a really good idea. I love the idea of the chase version for sure as well. And even the idea of a Stardust pop. I don't think that's a bad idea either. And I would like to see it, but I would like to see DK's first idea before we see a Stardust.
Anyways, guys, that is going to be the end of this edition of a Funko Podcast. And if you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know down below about your opinions of everything we talked about of the PG era. And we hope to see you guys on another edition of a Funko Podcast or a video in general on the channel. 1, 2, 3, I'm out of here.
Peace in, peace out.